In the village of Atoro, where the earth cracked under the sun's glare and baobab trees whispered ancient truths, lived a young man named Abadil. Known for his piercing gaze and silent nature, Abadil was not what he appeared to be. To the villagers, he was just another hunter, lean, rugged, and solitary. But hidden beneath his thatch-roofed hut and dusty tunic was a truth no one knew. Abadil was the sole heir to the great Kambesa fortune, a vast legacy of gold, land, and cattle left behind by his father, Chief Oiken. Before Chief Oiken died, he gave Abadil a single warning. The wealth of a man means nothing if love around him is bought. Let your heart be known before your riches. Abadil took that to heart, so much so that he decided to never speak of his inheritance until he was sure of who would stand beside him for who he truly was. He lived humbly, hunting and trading in the market square, where vendors shouted prices and children chased after goats. He slept on a woven mat and cooked yam over firewood like the poorest in the village. Many women overlooked him, save one. Adesawa, the daughter of a pepper merchant, was as spirited as the river Ozen in the rainy season. She was known for her sharp tongue, yet her laughter could soften even the hardest soul. She had suitors, sons of wealthy traders, young chiefs from neighboring clans, but it was the quiet hunter in dusty rags that she found herself drawn to. Abadil noticed her too, not just for her beauty, but for the way she helped the elderly without boast, the way she gave food to beggar children and spoke to them like they mattered. He watched her closely, but never dared approach. Not yet. One Harmattan morning, as red dust danced through the air, fate pulled them together. A wild boar had entered the village, and chaos followed. Abadil killed it with a single arrow. As the villagers cheered, Adesawa stepped forward, not with applause, but with a cloth to clean the blood from his hands. Their eyes met. From that day, Adesawa and Abadil became familiar shadows in the village. They walked together after market, shared roasted maize by the riverbank, and spoke in the moonlight about dreams that didn't involve riches or thrones. Yet doubt lingered in Abadil's heart. She said she loved him, but who was he in her eyes? A poor hunter? Would she stay if she knew he could give her silk and gold, or would she see him only as a ticket out of simplicity? He had to know. The moon waxed and waned, and so did Abadil's peace. His feelings for Adesawa deepened, but so did the questions clawing at his soul. One night, he sat before the sacred fire pit, where his father's spirit was said to linger. "Father, how do I know her heart is true?" he asked the flickering flames. The fire popped once, like a tongue clicking in thought, and a wind whispered through the trees. Abadil took it as a sign. It was time. The next morning, he disappeared. For 3 weeks, no one in the village saw him. Adesawa searched, asking hunters, traders, even old Ayam Fawn who claimed to speak to spirits. But Abadil was gone, like dust in a storm. Then one market day, he returned, but different. He was still Abadil in face, but now he limped. His once sharp tunic was torn. His beard had grown unruly. He looked like misfortune had swallowed him and spat him back out. He stood before Adesawa and said in a voice heavy with shame, "Thieves. In the forest. They took everything, my tools, my food, even my pride. I'm broken, Adesawa." Her heart clenched. She held his hand and led him to her father's house. Against her father's protests and the gossiping tongues of neighbors, she gave Abadil a place to sleep. She fed him. She stitched his clothes. And when he asked if she still saw him the same, she smiled and said, "You still have your eyes, and they still look at me the same way. I don't need more." But the village buzzed with talk. Why would a girl like Adesawa, beautiful, bright, lower herself for a man who had nothing? Was she under a spell? Was she desperate? When word reached Abadil, he watched her quietly. He saw how she bore the whispers, how she walked with her chin high, but eyes dark with silent battles. Then one evening, after she had prepared Oji for him, Abadil dropped the second thorn of his test. He said, "Adesawa, I will leave the village. There's a farming camp far off past the hills. I heard they pay laborers with yam and corn. I want to try." She stared at him, hurt flickering in her eyes. But we were to speak to my father soon. About marriage. He lowered his head. Not like this. I have nothing to offer. Adesua rose and left the room in silence. But by dawn, she stood at his door with a small bundle, Gary, dried fish, and her mother's old wrapper. You're not going alone, she said. Where you go, I'll go. Even if it's to work beside you. Abadil stared at her, stunned. That night, he wept alone under the moonlight. Not from sorrow, but because her answer shook something deep inside him. Still, the final test had yet to come. He had one more truth to uncover. Abadil led Adesua across the red hills of Aganwa, through paths only hunters and ghosts knew. They walked beneath canopies of ancient trees and slept beneath the stars, where hyenas howled and the earth whispered. She never complained. After 2 days, they arrived at a walled compound hidden behind thick bushes and guarded by silence. It was vast, larger than any chief's palace she had ever seen. The gates were carved with symbols of old wealth, elephants, cowries, spears dipped in gold. Adesua stared, confused. Where are we? She asked. Abadil gave no answer, only knocked 3 times. The gates creaked open, revealing a man in fine white robes. Behind him, servants bustled. The compound smelled of roasted meat and burning incense. Cattle grazed in the distance. Children laughed. The man bowed. Welcome, Master Abadil. Your house awaits. Adesua turned to him in shock. Master? Abadil took a deep breath. This is my home. Silence. He led her through the grand estate. Each room was more magnificent than the last. There were libraries of scrolls, walls of ivory, floors that sang beneath their feet. The final room was a hall of portraits, his ancestors, all kings, chiefs, and warriors. At the center was a painting of Chief Oiken, golden staff in hand, his eyes the same as Abadil's. He turned to her. I am not a hunter, not truly. I am the heir of Chief Oiken, ruler of 4 provinces. I hid my name, my wealth, because I needed to know if your heart beat for the man I am, or for the fortune I carry. Adesua said nothing. Tears welled in her eyes. She looked down at her wrapper, still stained from travel, then around at the gold-lined walls. You made me beg for you. Defend you. Leave my father's house. Suffer the gossip of this village, all to prove my worth. Abadil's voice cracked. I never meant to humiliate you. I only wanted to be certain. My father warned me, love is the only thing wealth can't buy. And I've seen how women turn when they see gold. Adesua's face twisted, not in anger, but in quiet pain. And now that you know, what do you see in me? Abadil stepped forward, voice soft. I see the woman who gave her pride to lift mine. I see the wife I prayed for. She turned her back to him. Give me a moment. And she left the hall. For 3 days, she did not come out of her guest chamber. She ate nothing, spoke to no one. Abadil sat outside her door every night, his heart in pieces. He had tested her, but perhaps it had cost him the one thing he couldn't afford to lose. On the 4th morning, her door creaked open. She stepped out, her face calm but unreadable. Abadil, she said, if you still want to marry me, I have only one condition. He rose instantly. Anything. Her eyes locked onto his. You must give away half of your fortune. Every cow, every coin. To the poor. The orphans. The forgotten. Abadil froze. His breath caught in his throat. Abadil stood in stunned silence, the weight of Adesua's demand sinking like stone in water. Half of everything? His father's cattle, the lands passed down by warriors, the gold stored in clay jars beneath the ground, gone? He opened his mouth, but Adesua raised her hand. I don't ask because I want revenge, she said, her voice even. I ask because if your love is true, if all this gold means nothing compared to the truth of my heart, then let it be shared. She stepped closer, eyes sharp as a blade. The people who walked past you when you wore rags, the hungry children, the widows, give to them. Prove to yourself that you are not owned by this wealth. that your father's lesson is still alive in you. Abadil felt the sting. Her words struck deeper than arrows ever could. He turned away and paced, sweat beading on his brow. He thought of his father, stern, wise, powerful, and of the secret pain behind his eyes during his final days. The old chief had wealth beyond measure but died alone, surrounded by servants who bowed but never truly cared. The wealth of a man means nothing if love around him is bought. And now here was Adesawa, the only person who had chosen him when there was nothing to gain. The only one who had walked with him through dust and shame. Abadil fell to his knees. "You ask for half," he said, his voice hoarse, "but you can have it all." Adesawa's eyes widened. "I will give half to the poor, and the other half we'll use together. Not for palaces or feasts, but to build a new life for the forgotten. If you'll still have me." For the first time in days, Adesawa smiled. It was small, but it held centuries of joy. "I never wanted your gold, Abadil," she said softly. "Only your heart. But now, I know your heart is ready to carry others with it." Epilogue: The House of Open Hands. Word spread like wildfire across the provinces. The heir of Chief Oiken had opened his compound to the people. Cattle were shared with those who had none. Gold was used to build schools, to dig wells where water once refused to flow, to rebuild homes broken by storms and time. And at the center of it all stood Abadil and Adesawa, side by side, not as king and queen, but as servants of the people. They did marry, but it was not a grand affair. Under a simple tree, surrounded by villagers, orphans, and elders, they exchanged vows with nothing more than beaded cords and whispered promises. And when Abadil looked into Adesawa's eyes that day, he wept again, not from pain, not from guilt, but from a joy that no amount of gold had ever given him. He had found the one truth his father had died without. That love, when pure, is the greatest wealth of all.